Late one night, a group of British animal rights activists, determined to help animals in distress, decided to break into a laboratory where chimpanzees were being used for medical research. Ignoring the desperate warnings from a lab worker who tried to stop them, the activists opened the cages of the chimpanzees. However, these particular chimpanzees were subjects of an experiment involving a dangerous virus called rage. As soon as the cages were opened, the infected chimpanzees attacked and bit the activists and the scientist. The virus spread at an alarming speed through anyone who was bitten, transforming them into uncontrollable monsters in a matter of seconds. 28 days later, a bicycle courier named Jim wakes up from a deep coma in a hospital that seems empty and abandoned. He had been in the hospital because of serious injuries he got while working. As Jim leaves the hospital, he is shocked to see that London is completely empty, with signs of terrible things that have happened everywhere. He walks through the deserted streets, calling out and hoping to find someone, anyone, who might still be around. Eventually, he finds a church where many people seem to be gathered. To his horror, Jim quickly realizes that these people have been turned into raging monsters, and they begin to attack him. Jim runs for his life, chased by the infected people, until he is saved by two survivors named Selena and Mark. They bring him to their hideout in the London Underground, using explosive charges on gasoline pumps to help them escape the infected. Once they are safe, Selena and Mark explain to Jim that while he was in his coma, the virus spread rapidly and uncontrollably. Most of the population turned into vicious, violent beings called the infected, causing society to collapse, possibly even affecting the entire world. Jim insists on going to his parents' house to see if they are okay. Even though Selena and Mark think it's a bad idea, they decide to go with him to make sure he stays safe. When they get to Jim's parents' house, he is heartbroken to find out that his parents have committed suicide. That night, while they are resting, several infected attack the group of survivors. After a fierce fight, they manage to defend themselves, but Mark is left bleeding from a deep cut on his arm. Despite Mark's desperate pleas for help, Selena immediately uses a machete to kill him. She explains to Jim that the infection spreads through contact with contaminated blood and takes over its victims in seconds, making them extremely dangerous to others. She sternly warns Jim that if he gets infected, she will not hesitate to kill him in a heartbeat. The next day, as Jim and Selena journey through the abandoned city, Selena makes it clear that there is no room for feelings or intimacy between them, saying that only the fight for survival matters now. While they are exploring, they notice Christmas lights blinking in a high-rise building and decide to check it out. Halfway up the stairs, Jim has to stop because he has a pounding headache. Selena tells him that he's feeling this way because he has been crashing from the sugar in the soda he has been drinking for the past few days. Just then, they hear the sounds of infected people coming closer, so they quickly race up the remaining stairs. At the top, a man wearing police riot gear helps them by directing them to his apartment and fending off the infected. Inside the apartment, they meet Frank and his teenage daughter, Hannah. Frank and Hannah have been hiding out in their flat, trying to stay safe. They invite Jim and Selena to spend the night. While they are there, Jim and Selena have a private conversation about whether they should stay with Frank and Hannah. Jim thinks Frank and Hannah seem like good people and wants to stay with them. However, Selena is worried that staying with others will slow them down and warns Jim that putting others ahead of his own survival could get him killed. The next morning, Frank tells Jim and Selena that their supplies, especially water, are running very low. He explains that it hasn't rained for several weeks, despite all the containers they have placed on the roof of the building to collect rainwater. Frank also shows them a pre-recorded radio broadcast that is playing on a loop. The broadcast is from some soldiers near Manchester who claim to have the answer to infection. Frank then tells Jim and Selena that he and his daughter Hannah need their help to leave the city and reach the soldiers. He explains that they cannot make the journey on their own and that it would be safer if they all work together. Frank hopes that by joining forces, they will have a better chance of surviving and finding a solution to the terrible infection that has spread everywhere. The survivors climb into Frank's cab, setting off on their journey to find the blockade where they hope to find safety and answers. During the trip, they begin to bond and get to know one another better. As they make their way out of the city, they come across a tunnel that is blocked by a massive pileup of cars. While trying to maneuver through the tight space, one of the cab's tires suddenly goes flat. Realizing that a horde of infected people is quickly approaching, they frantically work together to change the tire as fast as they can. With adrenaline pumping and hearts racing, they manage to fix the tire just in time and speed out of the tunnel, narrowly escaping the infected. On the other side, they find an abandoned store where they can stop and gather more provisions. That night, they decide to rest in a peaceful, pastoral area away from the dangers of the city. As they are settling down for the night, Jim notices that Selena is carrying a small stash of pills. She explains to Jim that she uses the pills mostly to help her sleep and to control the anxiety she feels in this terrifying new world. However, she firmly tells Jim that she won't give them up, as they help her manage the overwhelming stress of their situation. Selena's steely resolve begins to soften as she spends more time with Jim and the others, forming a bond with her fellow survivors. At the same time, Jim's experiences during their journey start to toughen him up, making him more resilient and determined. One day, they stop at a roadside rest stop that has a small restaurant. While the others take a break, Jim decides to explore the place to make sure it is safe. As he carefully moves through the empty building, he is suddenly attacked by an infected young boy who rushes at him, screaming, "I hate you!" In a moment of instinct and self-defense, Jim grabs a baseball bat and, after a struggle, manages to kill the infected boy. The experience leaves Jim feeling deeply shaken and remorseful. He walks out of the restaurant, his face showing the weight of what he has just done, feeling a mix of sadness and the harsh reality of their situation. When the 4 survivors finally reach the deserted blockade, they feel a mix of hope and relief, thinking they might have found safety. However, their relief is short-lived. Frank accidentally gets infected by blood dripping from a corpse hanging above them. Realizing what has happened and knowing that he is doomed, Frank harshly yells at his daughter, Hannah, to stay away from him to keep her safe. Within seconds, the infection takes over Frank, turning him into a raging monster who nearly kills Hannah. Before Frank can harm anyone, he is quickly shot by soldiers who had been hiding nearby. The soldiers then take control of the cab and escort Selena, Jim, and Hannah to a fortified mansion. This mansion is under the command of Major Henry West, who appears to be in charge of the remaining soldiers in the area. The group is left to wonder what kind of safety and answers they will find under Major West's command. As Hannah goes into shock from the loss of her father, Selena and Jim find comfort in each other and begin to develop a romantic connection. While they stay at the mansion, Jim uncovers Major West's disturbing answer to infection. West's plan involves waiting for the infected to starve to death, while maintaining hope for future community survival by forcing the female survivors into sexual servitude. Shocked and horrified by this revelation, Jim tries to escape with Selena and Hannah. However, their plan is thwarted, and they are captured by the soldiers. Along with them, Sergeant Farrell, who disagrees with Major West's plan, is also taken prisoner. That night, Jim and Farrell are locked up together, giving them time to talk. Farrell shares his theory with Jim, suggesting that there might not be a worldwide epidemic after all. He explains that the infection takes hold of its victims so quickly that it would have been impossible for any infected person to leave the British Isles. The next day, under the watchful eyes of 2 soldiers, the prisoners are led into the dense woods, where they face the terrifying prospect of execution. Selena and Hannah find themselves surrounded by the soldiers, who are eager to carry out their orders. Sensing the urgency of the situation, Selena requests a moment alone with Hannah to prepare her for what is about to happen. In a quiet moment away from the soldiers' gaze, Selena gently explains to Hannah the gravity of their situation. She assures Hannah that she will do everything she can to make the experience less traumatic for her. Knowing how frightening the impending ordeal must be, Selena offers Hannah one of her sedatives, hoping it will help calm her nerves and soften the impact of the harrowing events unfolding around them. As the 2 soldiers argue over how to carry out Farrell's execution, Jim seizes a chance to escape. He dashes away into the woods, and although the soldiers give chase, Jim manages to hide himself among a grim pile of corpses they had intended to dispose of. From his concealed position, Jim peers up at the sky and spots the distant contrails of a jet flying overhead, a sign that somewhere out there, the outside world is still functioning. Thinking quickly, Jim lures Major West and one of his men back to the blockade where they had first encountered the soldiers. Then, he swiftly returns to the soldiers' headquarters. There, he releases Mailer, an infected soldier whom West had kept chained up outside for observation. Chaos erupts as Mailer viciously attacks the soldiers inside the mansion. Meanwhile, Jim moves silently through the chaos, taking down a soldier and evading the growing number of infected. In the midst of the mayhem, Selena finds herself held hostage by the last remaining uninfected soldier. Her terror turns to shock as Jim suddenly bursts into the room, covered in blood from his recent struggles. In a savage and swift move, Jim dispatches the soldier, leaving Selena horrified and uncertain. She hesitates, raising her machete, unsure if Jim himself has been infected by the virus. Jim, sensing her fear, manages a wry comment amidst the tension. "That was longer than a heartbeat," he quips, breaking the tension between them. In a surprising moment, they share a passionate kiss, their relief palpable in the midst of the chaos surrounding them. Their reunion is interrupted by the arrival of Hannah, who finds them just in time. Together, the trio rushes back to Frank's cab, hoping to escape the carnage. However, their plans are thwarted when Major West appears and shoots Jim in the stomach. In a desperate move, Hannah takes charge of the situation, commandeering the cab and throwing Major West to the ravenous Mailer, who is still on the loose. With Jim wounded but still alive, Hannah drives them away from the mansion, racing through the chaos and danger that surrounds them. As they flee, Selena tends to Jim's wounds, their bond strengthened by the ordeal they have endured together. 28 days later, we see Jim waking up again, this time in a quaint cottage nestled far from the chaos of the city. He is wrapped in bandages, evidence of the ordeal he has endured. Venturing downstairs, Jim finds Selena occupied with sewing large pieces of fabric together. Hannah joins them, and without hesitation, they rush outside. Together, they unfurl a massive cloth banner that spells out the word "Hello" across the lush meadow below, their hearts pounding with hope and anticipation. As they stand beneath the clear sky, a jet roars into view overhead. Jim, Selena, and Hannah wave fervently at the aircraft, their spirits soaring with the possibility that someone out there might see their distress signal. After the jet passes by, carrying their hopes with it, Selena breaks the silence with a hopeful question. "Do you think he saw us this time?" Her voice echoes with uncertainty, yet tinged with optimism, as they await any sign of rescue or connection from the outside world. Which movie should we recap next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more movie recaps. Thanks for watching.